Marowak in play. We see his achievements, the Japanese national champion, top 4 at the Japanese national championships a couple of years ago, and a few years before that, even great performances years and years ago, a player of top pedigree that's able to carry it on into, of course, the top 8 of the 2017 World Championships, keeping on going.
All right, well, let's get this battle started. If you haven't started cheering already, now is the time to do so as these trainers send out their first Pokemon into battle. Nils will be leading that Nihilego and Tapu Koko on his side of the field against Ryota's Crocodile and that Tapu Fini.
Yes, and this is a really interesting matchup for me because I like how the Tapu Pokemon line up here. Nils isn't going to get his preferred terrain. He of course, is going to have that change when Tapu Fini's Misty Surge brings Misty Terrain to the party, and it's going to be facing off against a Crocodile from Ryota. But the big thing here is, although Tapu Fini has done its job of taking away the electric terrain, both the Pokemon on Nils' side of the field will be able to hit it for super effective damage one way or another. Electric type attacks from Tapu Koko, poison type attacks from Nihilego, really putting this Tapu Fini under pressure, and Ryota may be forced to play around that. Would be a really good time to rely on Crocodile, though. Crocodile answering both of the Pokemon on Nils' side. Tapu Koko weak to those ground-type attacks, and Nihilego exceptionally weak to ground-type attacks, so Nils may want to start tucking down this Tapu Fini, but he's got to be scared and respect this Crocodile.
Crocodile leaving the field, so Ryota not ready to give it up quite yet. That Marowak taking its place. Alolan Marowak with that Lightning Rod ability will certainly take away any electric type attacks from the Celesteela, who takes the spot of the Tapu Fini on Ryota's side of the field. Nihilego moving first with a Sludge Bomb to attack.
Acid Spray.
An Acid Spray.
Going
to
for that
attack
special defense
Marowak.
drop.
And the Dazzling Gleam from the Tapu Koko to finish the turn.
Yeah, well, Acid Spray actually used not for the damage so much, but dropping the special defenses is so important here. And Tapu Koko, following up the Dazzling Gleam, shows a little bit of Nils' strategy here. Get the Acid Spray down, lower the special defenses significantly, and then start dealing a ton of damage with the Tapu Koko. We've already seen a couple teams doing this. The Klefki we had on earlier trying to do it in Meadow Sound. In previous events, we've seen Whimsicott trying to do it. And this is a similar Tapu Koko to the one he's ran previously, so very well versed in this team. Ryota getting away with a double switch though and taking his Crocodile off the field, probably wanting to save it for both Tapu Koko and Nihilego, thinking Nils wasn't going to leave them in. He has left them in, and now he probably really wants to see that Crocodile. He did respect the Acid Spray and Dazzling Gleam play though, knowing that they'd be moving before, the Nihilego carrying the Choice Scarf to make sure it can get that Acid Spray off before the Dazzling Gleam from Tapu Koko would have done an absolute number on the dark typing of Crocodile.
Nihilego, having done its job for now, leaves the field, and that Alolan Persian will take its place. Tapu Koko leaving the field as well. Arcanine hopping out with that Intimidate to lower the attack of the Alolan Marowak and the Celesteela
Nils' turn for the double switch.
Side of the field. Alolan Marowak going for the Protect, not wanting to risk taking any damage from the Tapu Koko or that Nihilego, and Persian dodges the attack from the Celesteela.
Yeah, the Leech Seed not connecting with the Persian means it's not going to be losing a little bit of its health every turn, and Nils getting away with that double switch absolutely for free. No attacks coming out from the Marowak, and Marowak, of course, affected by Intimidate, and Celesteela missing its Leech Seed. So a free double switch for Nils, and something he's probably pretty confident in, knowing that even though the type effectiveness lies in the favor of Crocodile, that combination of Nihilego and Tapu Koko can deal with it. He saves that for later for when it's back in play. Really interesting to see the Arcanine come out here, and the Persian as well, probably in a good position if it's carrying something like the Foul Play to deal with the Marowak, which we see leaving the field immediately.
Crocodile is back out on the field with that Intimidate to lower the attack stat of the Arcanine and the Alolan Persian. Arcanine using Helping Hand to boost whatever attack Alolan Persian is going to go for this turn. It's a Foul Play targeting down the Crocodile. It's not going to do a lot of damage because it resists it, but still brings it down to just above half. Celesteela finally able to hit that Leech Seed onto the Arcanine. Yeah,
and the Arcanine's one of those interesting targets because you do want a way to start wearing it down, but in the same vein, wearing it down while it's potentially hitting you with Flare Blitzes isn't the most premium option. Persian there, revealing it does have foul play, making the obvious move towards that Marowak, means that the smart play of bringing in Crocodile from Ryota, getting that Intimidate down, which isn't actually going to affect the damage of foul play, but any other moves it has could be interesting, and it is, of course, going to help out a little bit against the Arcanine. But even with the resisted damage from foul play, because of Crocodile's Dark typing, that's really significant damage to get down, meaning he may not even have to make the Acid Spray play a little bit later on.
Crocodile starting this turn off with a Protect. Arcanine going to Protect as well. So it's just this Celesteela and this Alolan Persian to attack. Foul play into the protecting Crocodile, and Celesteela going straight for the Heavy Slam onto the Alolan Persian.
Yeah, really wanting to try and get rid of that Alolan Persian. But of course the Fur Coat ability, meaning it's not going to be taking too much damage at all. And he gets a little bit of chip damage down on Arcanine through the Leech Seed. Persian going for the foul play on Crocodile is interesting here. Clearly curious about the potential roll. The damage a little bit variant on the Crocodile. And if it could get a little bit more than last time, may be able to pick up a knockout. But Celesteela kind of giving himself a dead turn there, only doing a little bit of damage to Persian. And potentially setting up Leech Seed could have been another option for him there. But every little helps when trying to take out one of these Persian. You need to leave it in a position as such where you can knock it out without activating one of these berries, such as the Wiki or Margot berry.
Tapu Fini back out on the field for that Crocodile with its lower attack stat. Won't take as much damage from those foul play. Arcanine with the extreme speed followed up by a foul play onto that Tapu Fini. Tapu Fini is more than happy to take those attacks for the Crocodile. Celesteela again with the Heavy Slam again into that Persian.
Yeah, really smart play there from Ryota to respond to what he saw the previous turn from Nils. He saw the foul play come out towards the Crocodile, and knowing the Arcanine's on the field and having extreme speed means he could comfortably put that Crocodile in range to get knocked out by foul play. So he makes the right switch. He brings in this Tapu Fini, which takes very little damage as well. And he also gets a little bit of damage down on the Persian with Heavy Slam. A little bit has actually added up to just over half in total, probably around 60% there, if a little bit less, near a 55. But that Tapu Fini with a big fairy type attack, of course, isn't going to be slowed down by the Fur Coat and may be able to pick up the knockout without having to deal with a potential berry there on the Persian. The Arcanine as well isn't going to appreciate big damage from this Tapu Fini, and anything switching in could be taking a whole lot of damage. So Celesteela probably pretty comfortable alongside this Tapu Fini right now, as long as Tapu Fini can deal with or at least force out the Arcanine.
Arcanine does indeed leave the field, and Nihilego is going to take its place. Persian getting ready to switch out as well, but first using Parting Shot to lower the attack and the special attack of that Tapu Fini, and giving Niles another chance to adjust his position on the field.
Well, I think this is a really good time to adjust. Getting both your Nihilego and Tapu Koko back into play is really, really helpful here if you're Nils. Of course, that Tapu Koko is going to set up the electric terrain, so you're going to be able to do a lot of damage to both Pokemon on Ryota's side of the field, who is going to start going on the offensive with his Tapu Fini even after the drop from Parting Shot.
Muddy Water will connect with both the Nihilego and the Tapu Koko, getting an accuracy drop on the Nihilego. Celesteela with that Heavy Slam into the Tapu Koko.
Yeah, not going to be enough for the knockout there. So really falling short. You think maybe if he'd gone for Nihilego, called that switch in, might have been in a better position. But the amount of damage Tapu Fini did, even after the Parting Shot, something Nils is going to have to respect and use that information to figure out the item on this Tapu Fini. That's something we've talked about all day, all tournament, in fact. The Tapu Fini's item has been so essential. We've seen Choice Scarf and Choice Specs, and with the damage coming out, Choice Specs the likely option there. Now with Nihilego and Tapu Koko on the field, Celesteela is certainly more threatened than it was before, even with an Arcanine on the field, but I think it may be able to buy a turn or two. And if Nils doesn't target down this Tapu Fini and allows it to hit another Muddy Water, things could get real nasty for him real quickly. Of course, Nihilego with the Choice Scarf could be absolutely essential, and he shakes his head as he sees this switch coming in from Ryota.
Alolan Marowak on the field, bringing with it that Lightning Rod ability. Sludge Bomb into the Alolan Marowak. It is not very effective.
Oh,
and Nils,
no.
It looks like he went for a Gigavolt Havoc.
Ryota's celebrating as he's made the right call. This is one of the most galling plays to make in the video game at the moment, when you use an electric type attack when Marowak comes into the field. Marowak's Lightning Rod taking that Gigavolt Havoc and really, really enjoying it.
Opening up up the opportunity for Celesteela to use Heavy Slam to knock out the Nihilego on Niall's side of the field.
Yep, baited and outsmarted with that switch from Ryota. Felt that Nils was going to go all out with his Tapu Koko on that turn, and rightly brings in the brave little Marowak that he hasn't been able to remove from play to deal with it. You have to wonder if the Nihilego had gone for something like Power Gem. If he'd have caught that, he would have been able to use that Gigavolt Havoc. And almost disrespectful from Nils, knowing the Marowak's in the back, to actually go for the big electric type attack. He knew it was in the back, he didn't respect it on the way in, and Ryota brought it in at the perfect time.
Definitely something that Nils will be thinking about moving forwards into Game 2. I highly doubt he'll allow himself to be caught off guard by a Lightning Rod like that again.
No, and for the rest of this game, particularly this turn, he's still got to try and navigate around that Lightning Rod. Marowak is keeping that Celesteela safe for at least a turn, and it is going to just keep itself on the field for at least one more turn.
Alolan Marowak with the Protect Persian going to fake out the Celesteela, so Nils at least avoiding another knockout for this turn. But that Tapu Koko left, again, using the Thunderbolt into the Alolan Marowak.
Yeah, the Alolan Marowak sticking around basically means that he's not going to be able to use electric type attacks while it's still in play. Of course, he now has that Persian in place that would be able to knock out this Marowak, but it is going to need to do that before Tapu Koko can do anything at all. And that is certainly a bit of an ask for Persian. That's something that a lot of players aren't quite able to get their team together to do, especially because Tapu Koko is much, much faster.
Alolan Marowak leaving the field, Tapu Fini taking its spot. If Tapu Koko goes for an electric type attack, it will succeed, but Volt Switch doesn't do enough damage to really stop the Celesteela from attacking this turn. Instead, Nils will have an opportunity to switch that Tapu Koko out to bring back in that Arcanine to possibly threaten the Celesteela again, but with Tapu Fini around and potentially that Tapu Fini with that Choice Specs item, it might just be too little too late.
Well, the one thing I find really interesting here is Nils makes up a little bit for his earlier mistake by making the read and Volt Switching, assuming that Marowak was going to be leaving. He kind of covered his bases with Tapu Fini taking a big, of course, foul play there that didn't do too much damage. It would have been big if it hit the Marowak.
Yeah, Celesteela with the Heavy Slam into the Arcanine to finish up the turn. So a very safe play from Nils. Seems like he tried to cover it if the Marowak were to stay on the field and also if it were to switch out.
Well, the interesting thing, though, is Nils actually removes Tapu Koko from play while Marowak is off the field. And with that, of course, gone via Volt Switch, it means that when Tapu Koko comes in later, Ryota still has the option to make the Marowak play on him, use the Lightning Rod, keep him safe. So Persian here probably needs to help his partner out, get some parting shots down most importantly. Both these Pokemon on Nils' side of the field have taken a little bit more damage than the two on Ryota's side. And I don't know if the combination of Persian and Arcanine is really enough to deal with something like a Tapu Fini. You need Tapu Koko to deal with that, and that Tapu Koko is going to get shut down by Marowak.
Alolan Marowak will return to the field as foul play from the Alolan Persian will attack straight into it.
That's a great call.
Alolan Marowak now, now that it's knocked out, Tapu Koko is free again to use those electric attacks to attack that Tapu Fini or that Celesteela. Flare Blitz from the Arcanine into the Tapu Fini, bringing it down to just below half its health, taking a little bit of damage in recoil, and Tapu Fini locking itself into a Dazzling Gleam to KO that Alolan Persian.
Yes, and that's really, really big play from Nils. Again, another turn with a fantastic prediction in it, calling that the Marowak was going to be coming in place of that Celesteela. The Marowak, of course, the preferred switch for Ryota to take the Flare Blitz from Arcanine. He then decides to put the Flare Blitz in the other slot just to get a little bit of damage down. And the foul play, which would do pretty decent damage to Celesteela anyway, actually ends up getting rid of the Marowak. Now that Marowak is removed from play, the Celesteela's still in the back for Ryota, something he could bring out now. But that Tapu Koko is going to start being able to go for electric type attacks, especially towards his Tapu Fini. The Tapu Fini is something that if he removes it from play, he could swing it very drastically back in his favor. And I think Ryota without this Marowak is certainly up against it a little bit, even though he made such a great play with it earlier.
Yes, that Crocodile is still in the back of Ryota's party as well. If it can stick around around long enough, it might be able to help out, but instead, Ryota deciding to send that Celesteela back onto the field, even though Tapu Koko has returned, bringing that electric terrain along with it.
Well, this is a really good position for Tapu Koko. It does want to try and get some big electric type attacks down, Thunderbolts and Volt Switches, all that good stuff. And it has to respect a potential switch-in of the Crocodile. The Crocodile switch-in in the right spot would swing this game very drastically, I think, for Ryota, but he needs to make sure he picks the right slot. And in the same vein, he needs to hope Nils doesn't just go for a Dazzling Gleam, calling that Crocodile switch-in. We know he has the option to change moves, so Nils could throw out Dazzling Gleam here. It would move before both Celesteela and Tapu Fini, get a bit of damage down on them, but if the Crocodile came into play, then it would, of course, take the knockout there because of the Dark typing. We do see the Tapu Fini leave the field, so now it's all on Nils' decisions.
Crocodile has returned, bringing with it that Intimidate, but the big question is, what did Nils decide to do? Did he decide to use an electric attack? Did he decide to use the Dazzling Gleam? Or in this case, he goes for a Protect on the Tapu Koko. Celesteela protecting itself as well, so both these trainers taking a moment to figure out what exactly is on the other trainer's mind as the Arcanine is left flare blitzing into that Crocodile,
Ooh.
just barely missing a knockout.
Yeah, a whole lot of damage done, but really importantly, Nils activating the berry on his Arcanine, getting to eat that Figgy Berry and bring it to a much more useful level of health. This Celesteela, though, is going to be in an interesting position, and I think the onus lies with Nils to make the right calls now. If Tapu Koko goes for it, then he could get some double knockout here. Of course, Arcanine may be looking towards that Crocodile with a potential extreme speed. It's exceptionally low after that big Flare Blitz. And if he can get rid of Crocodile with extreme speed, even after the Intimidate, Celesteela is an easy picking for Tapu Koko here. So even though he didn't get the knockout on Crocodile that turn, he did do enough damage to it to put it in range for Arcanine to potentially deal with it and open up a number of other plays for Nils to make. Ryota definitely thinking over this turn as we do see another head shake on the switch from Nils.
Tapu Fini returning to the field and getting rid of the electric terrain, bringing the misty terrain in its place. Arcanine with the extreme speed trying to knock out that Crocodile, instead left attacking the Tapu Fini as Thunderbolt into the Celesteela.
Not enough.
Without the help of the terrain, it's not enough, and Celesteela is now free to use that Heavy Slam, knock out that Tapu Koko, and it's just that Arcanine left on Nils' side of the field.
Yes, and that Tapu Koko going down is so important. The Tapu Fini switching, reducing the damage without the electric terrain, meant Celesteela is able to stick around. Arcanine isn't able to start targeting down both these Pokemon, doesn't have a way to be dealing with this Tapu Fini. And I think Ryota showing off his prowess at keeping the right Pokemon in the back and bringing it in at the right time. There's been 3 turns now where the Tapu Fini switch-in has been so essential, and Nils kind of letting things slip a little bit. After one big turn where the read did not go in his favor, then he made a couple of turns where it did go in his favor, and he got some nice knockouts on Marowak on the switch-in. But right towards the end, where it matters most, Ryota just being one step ahead, not calling that switch in. And that's the kind of information Nils is going to need to take as we head into Game 2 here. Knowing that Ryota is going to make switches, knowing that those switches are always going to be quite defensive, and trying to capitalize on them.
Nils, you know, taking this opportunity to get one last piece of information before we go on to Game 2, using Protect on his Arcanine that last turn, allowing it to hang on for just a little bit more. Flare Blitz into that Tapu Fini, but it's not enough for that knockout. Tapu Fini free to use the Muddy Water, and provided it connects, which it does, that should be an easy knockout on that Arcanine.
Yeah, and so much damage coming out of the Tapu Fini on Nils' side. Really interesting to see that come to the fore. And the amount of damage that it did was really interesting. Maybe that's something that Nils was scouting to try and find more information on. Maybe get another move out of the potential Tapu Fini set. The crowd absolutely loving that game and desperate for a little bit more. I do see some of the Latin America contingent here in the shot we just had. But this is Europe versus Japan. And of course, Europe's last hope is down a game in this matchup. So Nils will have to make those adaptations as he moves into Game 2 here.
He will definitely need some adaptations. You know, that Nihilego, we saw that it had the Choice Scarf, it had that Acid Spray attack, but really he was unable to use that to his advantage. He locked in his pick so quickly, you have to wonder, does he have a better strategy for that Nihilego or just for his team in general moving forwards?
Well, that Nihilego was certainly interesting in turn one. The Marowak took that Acid Spray really, really nicely, and you have to wonder, there was a number of turns there where maybe something a little more aggressive coming out of that Nihilego would have been the play. We know that many Nihilego carry Power Gem with them, and that's really key when it comes down to these switch-ins. Power Gem on Marowak would be really, really nice. Power Gem on Celesteela would be pretty nice as well. Obviously, you can see that Nils is standing by, and a little bit more decision-making coming out of Ryota even after the win. Maybe going to try out something a little bit different. Maybe he wants to play a matchup that he finds a little bit easier and quicker to navigate.
Certainly something we've seen in the past battles here today. After a decisive Game 1 win, knowing what Pokemon to bring to essentially shut down your opponent even before the battle starts. In Nils' case, he's mixing things up with a Mimikyu and a Alolan Persian lead against Ryota's lead of that Crocodile and the Celesteela.
Well, there is something to be said of Nils' lead, and it kind of has a really nice play available in it with a very easy Trick Room. It has been so hard, obviously near impossible, to stop Mimikyu without Taunt when there's a fake out partner alongside it. So Nils showing that Mimikyu and potential Trick Room, maybe giving away a little more information about his team to Ryota. The Crocodile and Celesteela, a fairly comfortable lead, I think, from Ryota. The possibility to Earthquake, very nice from this Crocodile. And Celesteela, if Disguise is broken on Mimikyu, would be able to follow up with a big Heavy Slam, but fake out from Persia means at least one thing isn't going to be getting its turn.
Crocodile flinches and is unable to move as Celesteela sets up the Leech Seed onto that Alolan Persian, but Mimikyu, happy to use Trick Room, still has Disguise intact, and really this is a great start for Nils.
Well, interestingly enough, that Persian is going to be moving last in the turn under the Trick Room, but assuming it can stick around, and against these two that Ryota has, it definitely has the chance to. That Fur Coat ability, reducing damage from physical attacks such as, you know, Earthquake, such as the Heavy Slam, means that he's going to be able to take those really well, and that's something that I think is so important as he plays this game. That's something that I really want to see go well. The switch on the Mimikyu, though, meaning all it needed to do there was actually set up Trick Room, at least in Nils' mind.
Arcanine taking its place on the field, bringing with it that Intimidate to weaken the Celesteela and the Crocodile, but Crocodile not wanting to stick around with that lowered attack. Instead, the Alolan Marowak takes its place on the field. Alolan Persian switches as well, so it's a revolving door of Pokemon here as Snorlax takes the field in its spot to immediately fall victim to a Leech Seed from that Celesteela.
Yep, Ryota completely calling that switch out on the Alolan Persian and immediately setting up a Leech Seed on the Snorlax. That's something that's been really helpful in dealing with it. And I really like the Marowak switch in as well from Ryota. Of course, Marowak, an interesting answer to Snorlax, especially if any Snorlax does not carry high horsepower. If it only carries a normal type attack, then it does mean that it's not going to be able to do any damage. The Arcanine, not able to do very effective damage, of course, this Marowak. And actually, one of the best answers on Nils' team in that Alolan Persian and potential foul play is not on the field to deal with this Marowak, and it wouldn't be in a great position anyway to do it under Trick Room. So this Marowak is going to be really getting some value out of it, not just for redirecting Electro-type attacks, which Nils hasn't brought to this battle, but also kind of walling this Snorlax, and that's one of the reasons I think it's seen so much play here this weekend.
Celesteela leaving the field on Ryota's side, and that Crocodile back to take its place, bringing with it that Intimidate ability to lower the attack of the Snorlax and the Arcanine that it is staring down. Snorlax immediately gets rid of that attack drop with the help of a Belly Drum, going to cut its health in half and maximize its attack, and immediately consume one of those Pinch Berries to get half of that health right back. It's that Mago Berry. Alolan Marowak with the Flare Blitz going to target down the Snorlax to begin, that's not even whittling away its health, that's a ton of damage. Arcanine wanting to use a Flare Blitz of its own, going to target down the Crocodile, but again, Crocodile just left at about half of its health.
Yeah, Crocodile doing very well there. The Crocodile actually going to recover a little bit from this Snorlax's Leech Seed that he took when it switched in for the Celesteela. So may not be in range for another Flare Blitz to take it there. Snorlax is a really interesting Pokemon to Leech Seed because it heals a percentage, and a percentage of Snorlax's health is actually much higher because it's got such a high base health. It means that that number translates to a higher percentage on another Pokemon, such as this Crocodile. We saw it healing up an absolute ton when it got over to that Crocodile. Of course, Nils is in a really awkward position. He wants to capitalize on that Belly Drum. He wants to start dealing damage, but he has to respect that Marowak. He has to avoid another Flare Blitz. And if he doesn't recycle, you know, Crocodile could just protect and Marowak could knock it out because Marowak really has to be a little bit scared of the high horsepower. But at the same time, if it doesn't have it, that's going to be such a problem.
Arcanine starting out this turn by switching out the Mimikyu, taking its place on the field. Snorlax not ready to deal some damage, instead playing it safe, using Recycle to find that Mago Berry once again and immediately consume it for 50% of its health right back. The Alolan Marowak with a second Flare Blitz going to target down that Snorlax, looking for a knockout, but Snorlax again able to hang on, this time with a little bit less health, with Crocodile with the Crunch going to follow up onto the Snorlax for that knockout.
Yep, Ryota knowing exactly what the Snorlax was going to do. It was going to stick around. It was going to basically try and get that berry back with a Recycle. So he throws 2 attacks at it, getting rid of it, and also really smart play to not be scared of the Arcanine. That board position just wasn't great for Nils after the Arcanine, of course, had been intimidated. After the Leech Seed had healed up that Crocodile, meant he was in a great position. This Marowak will have to be a little bit afraid of a potential foul play from this Persian, but in the same vein, you know, he's back to his lead just with 1 less Pokemon, and Marowak's going to have the chance to hit something before that even happens. He could go and get some damage down on this Persian, even though Fur Coat will keep it around, or it could try and break the disguise on something like this Mimikyu. Mimikyu, though, would be really nice at dealing with this Crocodile. Those fairy-type attacks that we've seen on some of them could be really interesting, and I think Ryota's respecting that.
Celesteela back out on the field. Celesteela's Steel typing would certainly make it easier to take something like a Play Rough from that Mimikyu. Shadow Bone from the Marowak to break Mimikyu's disguise, making sure that it's vulnerable to taking damage starting the next turn. Mimikyu immediately following up with a Play Rough, not into the Crocodile, but into the Marowak. It's not very effective, but brings it down to just about 30% of its health. Alolan Persian following up with a Parting Shot, lowering that Alolan Marowak's attack and giving Nils an opportunity to switch things up yet again.
Now this Alolan Marowak has been causing so many problems for Nils. Game 1, it was its Lightning Run ability, and in Game 2, it was really its ability to keep this Snorlax in check by dealing such big damage. Now he's throwing everything he's got at it. Parting Shot lowering its attack. The Arcanine coming in with Intimidate lowering its attack, and also coming in at a time when Trick Room is ending. Now he's seen the Marowak, he probably doesn't want to set up Trick Room again. Snorlax is gone, but he needs to deal with this Marowak. And this Celesteela, with the Pokemon advantage, is always something I'm interested in if it can find the opportunities to set up here. Getting Leech Seeds down on something like this Mimikyu. Marowak potentially being able to get off 1 more move, though unlikely, would be absolutely huge here. Honestly, if I'm Nils, I don't even want to knock out Marowak because of the limited amount of damage it can actually do.
Mimikyu leaving the field in that Alolan Persian taking its place. Celesteela going to protect itself this turn. Does not want to take the Flare Blitz from that Arcanine at all. And Alolan Marowak attacking with the Shadow Bone onto the Alolan Persian, but it does nothing.
It does very little damage. Not very effective after 2 Intimidates or a Parting Shot and an Intimidate for the same effect. This Marowak is really dead weight on the field right now for Ryota. And if I'm Nils, I'd probably leave it there for a little bit. You're not worried about it at all, especially with the Trick Room gone. You can spend a little more time focusing on the Celesteela, something like a Fake Out and a Flare Blitz, followed up by another Flare Blitz. It means Celesteela won't be afforded another opportunity to move. Of course, Ryota has the Pokemon advantage and may be able to make a switch to capitalize on that. You don't want to leave Marowak attacking for little damage every turn, because then it will start to add up, but it definitely feels like that Celesteela on the side of Ryota is something Nils is going to have to look at, because if it comes down to a 2 Pokemon remaining situation, then he's going to be in a great position. Intimidate's going to be essential here, though.
Crocodile jumping back out onto the field, bringing that Intimidate, possibly allowing the Celesteela to survive a Flare Blitz from Nils' Arcanine. Persian with the foul play, targeting down the the Celesteela to deal a little bit of chip damage before that Flare Blitz, but the big question is, will it be enough to secure that knockout? With the Intimidate, it is not. Celesteela holding on, Arcanine taking damage in recoil, and Celesteela free to use Leech Seed, targeting the Arcanine to start getting its health back.
Yeah, not even close to getting the knockout on that Celesteela, and now it's in a position to start stealing a percentage of its opponent's HP every single turn. Arcanine being slowly worn down, and Celesteela pretty comfortable just recovering. Of course, the Crocodile, a really nice answer to Arcanine with those ground type attacks. Persian isn't in a position to fake out, maybe forced to use something like a parting shot to try and keep that Crocodile in check. But that means that there's going to be something coming in on the side, the Mimikyu without the disguise coming in for Nils there. And if that Celesteela can capitalize on that, maybe just go for it. Of course, he needs to get rid of the Celesteela, and that leaves his Arcanine open to being attacked by this Crocodile. So this turn really comes down to Nils finding the safest way out of what appears to be a tricky situation, in my humble opinion.
It's definitely a tricky situation. So many things could happen here, but Alolan Persian with the Quash was not one that I was expecting. As a result, the Crocodile will be moving last after the Arcanine uses the Flare Blitz to knock out that Celesteela. So Alolan Persian giving its partner one last opportunity to attack before Crocodile follows up with an Earthquake to look for the knockout on that Arcanine. Will it get it? It does. Alolan Persian is still left out on the field, but Nils is really getting this game down to the wire.
Yeah, Nils finding a really safe way to deal with that Celesteela. Obviously respecting the potential Earthquake from Ryota's Crocodile because it was next to a Celesteela. Felt that was going to be the play and knew one of the best ways out for it was just to quash it. Now, the interesting bringing of the Tapu Fini, something I really like here from Ryota. Mimikyu probably doesn't have an attack super effective against it. Persian doesn't want to get caught by a fairy type attack. And Crocodile did its job there. It got rid of the Arcanine, even though it cost him his Celesteela. He still has the numerical Pokemon advantage as 3-2. And Ryota's Tapu Fini in a fairly solid position to try and tidy up this game. Of course, Crocodile isn't going to want to get hit by this Mimikyu, but I think Tapu Fini is the key Pokemon here, and keeping it safe from Nils is the key to victory right now.
Keeping it safe from Nils, but also keeping it hidden throughout the beginning portion of this game. Ryota playing very safe and ensuring that when the Tapu Fini would take the field, with only 2 Pokemon left, he knows that Nils cannot make any more switches. We know that Tapu Fini does hold that Choice Spect item, so really giving himself the opportunity to make a very informed decision about what move he wants Tapu Fini to be using right now. Speaking of moves, why not throw in a Z move from that Crocodile?
Yeah, that Crocodile really doesn't want to get taken out without doing something in retaliation. It reveals the Groundium Z and Tectonic Rage to Nils, going for a big knockout here. Tectonic Rage targeting the Mimikyu, going to try and take it out before it gets to retaliate with a fairy type attack. We did see really big attacks, and that Tectonic Rage comfortably taking the knockout on Mimikyu, so no chance for it to retaliate.
Tapu Fini following up with the Dazzling Gleam with the single target. It looks like that Alolan Persian has been knocked out, and Ryota Otsubo will be moving on to the top 4 here at the 2017 Pokemon World Championships.
Another top 8 finish for Nils here. So galling. He looks so defeated by that, but he went down to a fantastic